For nearly 2 weeks now, the Canadian Prime Minister has stuck his neck out to speak up for pro-Khalistan terrorist Hardeep Nijjar. He has pretty much risked his reputation, the reputation of his government and his country on the global stage as he blamed Indian agents for the killing of Hardeep Nijjar, even as his allies have chosen to rather distance themselves and not endorse his comments. But what about this woman you see on your screens, Karima Baloch, who was also granted asylum by the Canadian government? The Baloch Human Rights Council of Canada today is questioning the silence of the Canadian Prime Minister on the death of the Baloch activist who was found dead in 2020 in Toronto. Baloch activists also held protests in Geneva demanding answers over the suspicious death of Karima Baloch. Her husband also says her death cannot be a case of suicide. But will Justin Trudeau speak up for her?
We believe that the Canadian government and the Canadian justice system didn't do well for Karima Baloch. She died in a suspicious manner, in suspicious circumstances. And we have been requesting the Canadian government to investigate her case. We are trying our best to pursue this legally and to pressurize the Trudeau government to start a new investigation in Karima Baloch's case.
Well, remember, the Canadian Prime Minister blamed India for the murder of the pro-Khalistan terrorist Nijjar and repeated his claim multiple times. Reports also suggested that Nijjar's son even admitted his father was getting intelligence briefings by top Canadian officers. There was no action on protests against India by pro-Khalistan mobs in Canada. Posters were also put up outside religious places in Canada asking for the murder of Indian envoys, which were only taken down amid deteriorating ties with India. But if Trudeau is going to bat for free speech and speak up for Canadians, many are asking today whether it applies for all or is it only selective? Well, there's more to the terror patronage that many are accusing the Canadian government of, are talking about today. The Canadian government has failed to take action on designated pro-Khalistan terrorists. India has given multiple deportation requests to the Canadian government for wanted terrorists, including Goldie Barar and Lakhbir Singh Sandhu, but there has been no response. A Bangladeshi fugitive, Noor Chaudhry, has been hiding in Canada for almost 30 years, faces multiple cases in his home country. Multiple deportation requests have also been ignored. A South Asia Intelligence Review report also claimed that multiple groups sent $10 million a year to LTTE. Let's in fact open this up and go across to the guests who are joining us on the broadcast. We have Mehran Mareen, representative of Balochistan at UNHRC and EU, and we have Bilal Baloch, journalist and human rights activist, joining us as well. Mr. Mehran, I first want to come to you. Why do you think there is this selective silence when it comes to Karima Baloch, and the Prime Minister of Canada chose to level allegations publicly on India on the issue of Hardeep Nijjar's murder?
Hi. Obviously, there's political motives behind whatever stance they're taking when it comes to the murder and in support of Pakistan in general. And if Mr. Trudeau was so adamant on safeguarding human rights of all humans, then there's a military operation at present happening in Dera Bukti, where scores of Baloch are being killed by bombing and shelling by Pakistani army. Why is he silent on that? The human rights violations have happened so much for so long in Balochistan, and Mr. Trudeau and the Canadian government have never raised their voice. And of course, in particular in Karima Baloch's case, they brushed it under the carpet. They never made it an international issue, whereas they've internationalized this murder of the Sikh activist, or the Sikh gentleman, to out of proportion they've internationalized it.
Well, it's not just any other Sikh gentleman, individual belonging to the Sikh community or a Canadian citizen, as being said, but it's about his background. It's about how multiple cases are registered against him, how several requests were made by the Indian government, the Indian authorities, but Canada did not even move an inch. Now, before I come to you, Mr. Bilal Baloch, we have a reaction coming in from Naseem Baloch, chairman of Baloch National Movement. I quickly want to play that out first.
पहले दिन से जब हमने ये स्ट्रगल शुरू किए बलूचिस्तान की आज़ादी के लिए, उस दिन से हमें अंदाज़ा था कि हमारा जो एनिमी है, जो दुश्मन है, वो अखलाकियात, एथिक्स, मोरलिटी उसकी क्या है, हम उसे समझ सकते हैं। बार बार डिमांड करेंगे जब भी मौका मिले कि वो इन्वेस्टिगेट करें, सही इन्वेस्टिगेट करें, ये उनके लिए भी उनके जो वैल्यूज़ हैं, डेमोक्रेटिक वैल्यूज़ की वो बात करते हैं। ये अगर सही इन्वेस्टिगेशन करके एक सही रिजल्ट नहीं हमें देंगे, हम समझते हैं कि उनके डेमोक्रेटिक वैल्यूज़ बराए नाम हैं, उनके अपने लिए हैं, दुनिया के लिए उनकी वैल्यू नहीं होगी।
Mr. Bilal Baloch, is it really about justice for Nijjar as the Canadian government is claiming, or is it only, about politics of convenience and only about the vote bank in Canada? Popularity is dipping, and that's the reason why many are, today alleging that this publicity stunt was carried out without placing any evidence in public domain. And if the Prime Minister of Canada was so concerned about Canadians being killed on their soil, what about Karima Baloch?
I think, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. Must be remember in your mind, there are the two different people we are talking. One is a human rights activist. I'm talking about the Karima Baloch. She has no any case registered even in Pakistan. But the government and the intelligence agency was threatening not only Karima and other colleagues of the political parties, but other side, Hardeep Nijjar. He was a recognized terrorist by India. Not only India, if we see the no-fly zone from the US, he was nominated on that list. So there are two different things. So we do not mix one terrorist and one human rights activist. Now come to the point that she was a recognized asylum seeker in the Canadian soil. When she died, I myself contacted to the police. I wrote 3 emails. I wanted to know why she died. And police said there was no foul play be found. Well, I can agree that there is no foul play. But is there any statement come from Justin Trudeau or the Jolie, the foreign minister of the Canada? There is no any statement, neither any condemnation come from both sides. So this is totally injustice. One side, you are not giving a single attention to human rights, genuine human rights activists. Our life was in a danger in Pakistan by Pakistan security agencies. But in other side, a terrorist who was nominated by the FBI, no-fly zone from the United States, and the terrorist declared by the Indian government. So I think this is totally dishonesty. Totally dishonesty.
The family of Karima Baloch have alleged, Mr. Baloch, that ISI is involved, that it is Pakistan behind her murder. Now, was a fair investigation conducted based on which they said that there's no foul play?
I don't think so. You cannot say within 1 week that there is no foul play. And through this show, I request, because I saw the Amal Aidar, he is the husband of Karima Baloch, late Karima Baloch. I request to him and his party, if Justin Trudeau is not going to do anything, let them bring them in the court. You have opportunity, go to the court, knock the door of the court, so we, the Baloch people, can understand what exactly happened to the Karima. We want to expose the Pakistan army and its atrocities around the world. And we know Karima Baloch, how can a woman wear a very expensive cloth, the brown, and go for the suicide? It is totally, we cannot understand this phenomenon, something like that. So we must raise this issue in political way, and that. Okay. And you can say.
Okay, I want to bring in Mr. Mareen as well. Mr. Mareen, so the Canadian Prime Minister's heart bleeds for a terrorist, but not for a human rights activist?
I think we have to see everything in a perspective, because it was Canada's primary responsibility to safeguard Karima Baloch's safety and her life. They didn't. They failed at doing that. Secondly, we have to understand the holistic view of how the Canadian government and the Trudeau government operates when it comes to terrorists. The Pakistani generals and the majors and the captains who have their hands soaked in Baloch blood, they carry out business enterprises in Canada. They are landowners, they're property owners, they're business owners. They bring all the dirty wealth from Pakistan to Canada. So Canada is very much obliged to these military generals. And it's an open secret. Everyone knows that these Canadian generals roam around freely. After they commit ethnic cleansing and genocide of the Baloch people in Balochistan, they come to Canada. This is a place of rest. So we should not hold high expectations from the Canadian government. If they were so honorable and unbiased, they would first of all put on trial the military generals who live in Canada and who come on holidays with their families.
In fact, contradictory to what you are expecting Canada to do, Mr. Baloch, they have been providing safe haven to terrorists and fugitives of Bangladesh as well. Bangladesh and Sri Lanka have both slammed the Canadian government, saying that they have provided a safe haven and have allowed such elements to operate and flourish on their soil.
Yeah, I mean, they do take token asylum seekers like Karima Baloch and other some Baloch as a token. But predominantly, they like big dictators and army generals who've committed genocide in their countries, respective countries, to bring their wealth, just like Switzerland. They want the rich with their dirty money in their countries, and they will be safeguarded, no matter what they do.
Mr. Baloch, your response.
I think Mehran Mareen is totally agree. I agree with the Mehran Mareen. And I tell you one thing. There is the politics. This is the reason Mehran Mareen is not allowed to come to Switzerland. You know why? Because he raised the voices of the Baloch in the United Nations. So you have to understand the politics behind our struggle is very active, not only in Pakistan, not only in China, all around the world. They see their own interests. Like Mehran said, there are many retired major journalists. They are living in Canada. They have access, they have influence on the member state parliament member and the minister. So this is the reason you can see in the 3 months after they came to the parliament and they claimed Nijjar was assassinated by the Indian government. But within 2 days, another one died. The Justin Trudeau claimed we sent back to the Indian diplomat to the India. And within 2 days after, another died. So I think as a journalist and I know how the gangs work, and the terrorist gang worked in the Canada, so that was their own game, and blaming India and not doing anything against Karima Baloch, I think this is totally dishonesty and a political statement from the Justin Trudeau.
Political convenience is at play, and the External Affairs Minister of India S. Jaishankar in fact pointed that out. He called it out on the global platform and said, political convenience, Mr. Murray, should not be used to determine what your response is going to be to terrorism. So while you level these wild allegations against India openly, you say nothing about the role of ISI, you say nothing about the role of Pakistan.
I think political convenience, as the word has been used, is at the base of every decision that Western democracies make. I think when it comes to Ukraine, let's look at the stance of Ukraine. The occupation of Ukraine has been made a bigger deal than Second World War. What about our occupation? My population is much bigger than Ukraine's, the Baloch population and the Baloch land. How come our occupation is not that significant enough for the world to talk? And when Baloch go to the mountains and take arms, they're terrorists. Over here, the entire world is supplying arms to Ukraine. And they're in such a rush, they don't know who should supply more arms to them to kill other human beings. It's such double standards in today's international community that sometimes talking of human rights seems like just fooling ourselves. It's shameful.
Absolutely. So you've in fact exposed another duplicity and hypocrisy of the Canadian government, Mr. Baloch, when Mr. Murray points out how we in fact saw Volodymyr Zelensky in the Canadian Parliament with Justin Trudeau, but conspicuous silence not just on the murder of or death rather of Karima Baloch, but also on the situation of Balochis. Bilal Baloch, that is for you.
I think there is one thing Mehran mentioned. I just tell you one more thing about that. We are facing worst conditions all around the world, even from Ukraine, but no one is talking about us. This is the pure politics. This is the pure interest of the diplomacy. You just go and ask the people how they are suffering. So more than 30,000 Baloch people are missing. But if we see the globe, the champion of human rights, just like Canada and other countries, they are totally silent. So this is the totally political motivated statement. They are coming from across the globe for the human rights. But the genuine people, they are suffering from the decades in the Balochistan. They have their own land,
right?
But they have been treating just like they are not I mean, from the another planet.
Right, but that issue is
And
not being raised because it does not.
One thing about the Pakistan. Just let me finish one thing about Pakistan.
Yes, all right.
They talk about Muslim in China. Either we are not Muslim in Balochistan, either we don't have any Quran. Either our Quran is different than the people from the Uyghurs. So this is the things you have to understand that. They people talk about Balochistan and everything, but when they are Uyghurs, they do not talk about anything. And other countries, they talk about the Uyghurs, but they do not talk about us.
Right. Well, like you both said, and like S. Jaishankar said, political convenience is at play, and that probably is, deciding how the response should be. Thank you very much, Mr. Mareen and Bilal Baloch, for joining us, for giving us your time here on Times Now.